It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance coming to you from the state's capital, Sacramento, California. We are joined by Bill Monning. He is a member of the California State Senate representing the beautiful central coast of California, which, like the entire state, is always at risk of an earthquake. And I think about part of your district, San Luis Obispo County, where Diablo Canyon sits, an active nuclear power plant. So there's some nerves when you think about earthquakes and the Central Coast.
Right. It's an issue affecting the Central Coast, really all of California when you look at the fault lines. What I've been focusing on as chair of the insurance committee this year, we've held a couple of informational hearings looking at the risk. We know there will be another large seismic event like Fullerton or Loma Prieta. We just don't know when and where. And because they come out of nowhere with little warning, there's a complacency, and we're trying to attack that complacency. There's a very low take-up of insurance for homes and businesses.
I must talk about the complacency. I was at a movie theater recently. I live in the Los Angeles area. In the middle of a movie, an earthquake hits. No one flinched. It was as if it was part of the movie experience. Yeah. We looked at each other and we went on. Blessing and a curse, though. I mean, I really do believe, especially in Southern California, the complacency is great.
Right. And one thing that's changed, Brad, since the Fullerton quake in the early 90s, we're much more dependent on internet, Wi-Fi, connectivity. And so the potential business impacts, not to mention displacement of people from their homes or jobs, is paralyzing business continuing. So we're looking at a new concept in building, not just survivability, which most building codes are designed to make sure a structure protects human life, but the structure is then often not inhabitable. So there's a new term called resiliency, and developing a rating system based on retrofitting and investing in the front end in a preventive point of view to make your dwelling, your home, or your business more resilient, and maybe linking that to trying to bring down what are now very high insurance premiums.
And I do want to talk about insurance premiums for earthquake coverage. Look, to many of us, when you do a cost-benefit analysis, the insurance premiums are simply too high. I mean, they dwarf all other insurance payments.
And that's why only about 11% of residences carry it, and only about 8% of businesses. And so what that suggests is that we are very susceptible to a massive event that is underinsured, and most people have looked to FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, as the default insurance fund. But if you've looked at FEMA recently with Hurricane Katrina and other more recent weather events, it has no reserves. It is in the red.
But if you have an insurance rate that is as low as you suggest, meaning number of people signing up, the market's not working. I mean, this is Econ 101. If you have an 11% buy-in for residential, the market's broken.
Right. Well, one thing that came after the Fullerton quake, when there was actually higher take-up, not a huge amount, but maybe double what we have today, was the establishment of the California Earthquake Authority.
I know it well, but the rates are still
really high. So the question becomes, is there a way to incentivize preparedness that would translate into lower rates, or maybe work on developing a catastrophic event, because we also now have greater risk of wildfire that can also take out neighborhoods and communities.
Let's talk about that possibility when we come back. We know New Zealand is looking at that possibility. We saw what happened in Haiti when no one was prepared. So for our viewers on HLN, I want to thank you so much for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back with Senator Bill Monning on California Edition. So, sir, let's talk about New Zealand. You had mentioned to me, and I remember well, the Christchurch earthquake, which just decimated that city. A city which, in a lot of ways, was prepared for that inevitability. Not Haiti. More like Los Angeles or San Francisco.
So the New Zealand story is an interesting one, because actually they established a catastrophic reserve account coming out of World War II, where they had mobilized reserves as part of the war effort. And that got translated into a catastrophic insurance base that all property owners were assessed a fee that continued. And so that was grown to provide a well-funded insurance reserve that when the Christchurch quake happened, every property owner was immediately eligible for about $100,000 of recovery money. Now, that may not have been enough to rebuild a downed business building, but particularly for small business owners and homeowners, it provided at least the support for a transition, the support to get reestablished. And so we look at that as a possible model for something in California or even nationally, that we're going to have to do something more so that we're not caught, as we are today, really ill-equipped to respond to a massive event.
And when we think about a massive event, we think about what could happen to our water system. And I want to ask you about that because you are so dialed in to what's happening with water policy.
Right.
I mean, if something happens with the Delta, the consequences could be just cataclysmic.
So about 20% of our energy expense in the state is moving water around the state. And it's moving water from the north to the south. We also move water from the Colorado River to the Los Angeles area. A big event in Southern California could knock out water conveyance for up to 6 months.
Right.
This would pose an incredible public health risk to people living in that area. So you look at water transit, you also look at the energy stations that move that water. So there's been some modeling of high-risk events, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Silicon Valley area, also impacts to agriculture. A similar quake hitting the Bay Area as the one that hit in 1906 could have an impact of $260 billion of impact on the Bay Area. A magnitude 7 quake rupturing the southern and northern Hayward Fault could cause up to $235 billion in damages. So this is the modeling that's going on. We have good modeling. We have emergency agencies that go through drills, including in San Luis Obispo County with Diablo Canyon, which is built to withstand an 8.0 earthquake, but some of the recent licensing application for Diablo has looked at the discovery of new fault lines that weren't known at the time of the original licensing, and PG&E has been doing seismic testing.
What I'm wondering, though, in addition to the need to look at the insurance question, California really doesn't have, as I understand it, very effective early warning systems. I believe in Japan, they have rolled them out. Mexico City, they have rolled them out. Even 10, 20 seconds can be valuable. Yet we don't have those systems in place.
But we actually have in the pipeline legislation carried by Senator Padilla last year that while it doesn't allocate state funding to it, it does put on record the state's commitment to developing this, trying to mobilize private, municipal, other sources of money that could do exactly what you said, Brad. It can provide a detection of maybe 30 seconds to 60 seconds. You say, well, that's not a lot, but if it lets you alert the operator of a train, the operator of airports, and other transit systems, or a warning for people to just duck and cover, it could translate into saving lives.
And it can work. I mean, I've seen the modeling that you suggest. If there's an earthquake, for example, at the San Andreas Fault, it's going to take 20, 30 seconds to hit Los Angeles. And so those precious seconds can do exactly what you said.
So how do you put in place the alarm system that people are trained and they know how to use those, what might only be 15 or 20 seconds, but if it's the operator of a bus or a train, and they can have an immediate alert and literally a kill switch to bring that vehicle to a halt.
So do you see progress on the early warning system?
Yeah, both scientific progress and public policy support. What we passed last year was a step forward in trying to institutionalize that. Again, the challenge is when we're looking at tough budget questions, to many people, out of sight, out of mind, are we going to put $30 million there when we've taken $30 million out of our court system?
Look at Louisiana.
Yeah.
His name is Bill Monning. He is a member of the California State Senate. I'm Brad Pomerance, and this is California Edition.